Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in and joining me as I explore the amazing wide world of pens. And yes, there's an example being held up by a shrimp. One of my latest pen holders that I bought. Did a video on them. But why do I have this pen in my hand? I'm not a fan of click-to-use pens. I have a couple of vanishing points. I have a couple of the Chinese knockoffs. I have an A1. I have some really old versions which are pretty non-functional. But I saw this advertised on Facebook, and that should have been the warning bell going off, because everything I've ever bought on Facebook has turned out to be a disaster. Things aren't delivered. They ship me some inferior little piece of crap and then try to get credit for it. Luckily, I have not gotten burned. I've been able to stop some of my purchases with my credit cards or PayPal. And most of the time when I've done that, they stop the payment very quickly and refund the money because it's a scam. This pen has a low value if you buy it on AliExpress and even eBay or other places. So therefore, for a couple dollars, which is what I'll use as a reference point, not the 20-some dollars it cost me to get this pen delivered. And yes, I think the price was originally $12, and then when I bought it, they added charges to it, and the final thing that showed up on my PayPal was quite strange, not typical of what I'm used to when I buy things and pay with PayPal. Simplistic closure mechanism, just a little cap you pull off. So why do they do that? Well, they don't want to spend money or engineer a closing mechanism. So this gives you a pen you can click, write, click, set for a little bit, hopefully, not dry out too much. If you're going to let it set for a while, put the cap on. Again, not exactly a clipless or capless pen as one might call them, but it does work, and for a couple dollars, is it worth an experiment? The real key is, how does it write? So let's look at some details, and I'll find an ink to put in here, and we'll write with it. So it comes with this converter, just a simple push-pull converter, but the problem you have is how do you fill it? Because there's a spring that keeps that nib retracted unless you hold it down. So you basically have to hold down the mechanism, expose the nib to put it into ink, and then use the push-pull to draw up some ink. Not the easiest thing in the world, but it does do the job. So much for a very simplistic engineering design, but functionality, not as good as you might like. So as an engineer, I appreciate simplistic design, functional, but simple. So the maker of this pen just took a normal ballpoint thing, and it looks like I lost a little thing at the end of there. Yeah, I'll go look for it. And they made that into a retractable fountain pen, and then rather than try to design a sealing mechanism, they just gave you a little cap to put on there. They also included a converter, not your upscale converter, just a push-pull. You may ask about cartridges. Well, their opening looks pretty big. Here's a Jinhao cartridge I use, which is like a 2.6 millimeter opening. And here's a Hongdian or other brand of a cartridge, and you can see that opening is the right size, but the challenge you have is the length is not there. After some thought and looking at the listings for this pen, I've come to realize that this cartridge will work because this end is so much wider than the converter, and they've designed the little insert in there so when you put the cartridge in and you screw this down, it will sit up against the nib and work to extend the point when necessary. I'm not a cartridge person, so I'm not going to put a cartridge in there just to verify it, but I'm 100% certain that that's how it works. It had bugged me why they showed the cartridge, and so I figured out how it would work. Mine works in mysterious ways. It took me a couple hours to come to that conclusion. So lucky I found the end. It had rolled on the floor and hadn't gone into some hiding place like a lot of stuff that rolls on the floor. So I used a converter to hold up that end, and I screw this back on. Hopefully now it's a little tighter. That's how it works. So this is the ink I wanted to put in the pen. I thought it might work. They're fairly wet inks, and I thought that color might work well. You're still going to have a cleanup job when you're done filling. So let's see what it looks like on the paper towel. It's a pretty decent dark saturated ink. Again, this ring can come off. Don't lose that. Push it down to kind of clean a little bit more off. Yeah, I did my multiple fills, and the last fill I pulled up slowly, and we could see we got a pretty full fill. There's still some bubbles there, but hey, it's a cheap pen. What do you expect? So when I first filled the pen and touched nib to paper, it felt really, really nice. I call it an amazing nib, and that's what I think attracted me to the pen, because it showed the nib to flex a little bit. Very smooth, but the feed dries out. Flow is inconsistent. Bad. If you let it set for a minute or two, you can write a little bit, and then it dries again, as you saw some examples in the writing. Well, who knows? I don't think it's the ink, because wet pen ink is very fluid, flows well, but again, ink and pen sometimes don't make a good combo, regardless of what you might think. So, too bad. It should work with this ink, but it doesn't. So looking at various postings, this pen seems to be on Amazon a lot. It shows that the nib assembly comes out, but it doesn't come out of this pen, at least not with what I'm trying to do. You know, I might look at some other reviews and see what other reviewers have found about this design, but I'm not really motivated. This is the pen I have, and this is the pen I'll review. The other thing to note is you can easily misplace that little cap on the end, so that's the other thing that is not good in this design. So it's in setting for a while. Let's see how much it'll write, and we'll have to end the video. I can't explain what's going on. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to flush this, and that's probably why it might be doing this, because I do flush all of my pens before I write with them, but with this design I didn't really feel like trying to get it to flush, drying it out, etc., etc. So I would not recommend this pen unless you're into fiddling around, and certainly don't pay more than a few dollars for it. So I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying pens, maybe not this one, but some other pens. I'd like to thank all of you for watching. As you can see, it starts up after sitting for a little bit, but certainly makes an everyday writer not something this pen is going to be good for. So with that, we've reached the end. You can see it's dried already. But that nib feels so nice when it does write. So we will say bye. Till later.